Now, throughout football history, we have witnessed many generational runs, periods in time where one individual has reached extraordinary heights, leaving a lasting legacy and a memory that we will never forget. So in today's installment of generational runs in football, we tackle some new players. A new list of players that were recommended in the comments of the last episode to this series. And first off, we head to Milan, a place known for its fashion, but also an area where Zlatan Ibrahimovic came, saw and conquered. Now during this time, AC Milan was seen as a fallen giant, never really replicating their peak years throughout the 2010s and 2020s, whilst also enduring a Champions League absence in the 2013/14 season. They would also finish as low as 10th during this period in their club's history, but it was one man that showed up and kind of changed everything. Because in January 2020, Milan were just straight off the back of a 5-0 defeat to Atalanta. And that's when the higher ups said, nah, we need backup, call in Zlatan. And at 38 years of age, Zlatan Ibrahimovic returned to AC Milan, bringing this leadership and belief that this squad needed during this time. And that's when we saw his generational run begin. Zlatan would make immediate impact from the half season of being at this club, scoring 10 goals in 18 league appearances, lifting Milan from mid-table mediocrity to a 6th place finish and a Europa League qualification. And then in the following campaign, the 20-21 season, he would continue this run of form, scoring 15 goals in 19 games. And thanks to his contributions again, Milan would finish in an even better position this season, reaching second and their best placing season in nearly a decade, whilst also helping this side reach the Champions League for the first time in 7 years. Then the 2021/22 season comes around and Zlatan says, I ain't going anywhere. This season we saw Zlatan's role evolve because of his injuries at the time, scoring 8 league goals as his minutes were managed throughout the entire campaign. Yet it was his influence that still remained immense and helped the entire team, because Milan's young stars would absorb this aura that Zlatan was presenting to them and would lead AC Milan to their first Scudetto in how many years? 11 years to be exact since their last one. Zlatan had had a big influence and impact on this run, mentally guiding a lot of these young players during these times and combining with Giroud this season for over 40% of AC Milan's goals. And it wasn't just like it was fans that saw his impact, it was the young players too that were playing for Milan's side during this time. The likes of Rafael Leao, Theo Hernandez and Sandro Tonali all giving praise to Zlatan during this season and his tenure at this club. And this was such a weird spell in time because Zlatan was already an icon at AC Milan for his spell before he moved to PSG. But he returned to this great club and did what he couldn't do all them years ago, taking Milan going through a downward spiral and picking them up. Something like Askeladd did to Thorfinn in Vinland Saga, picking up this young child and taking him on the back and saying, you're coming on this journey with me to the very end. Now from one striker reviving a team at the end of his career to another that absolutely reached the peak of football in one season at Arsenal, we have to talk about Thierry Henry from 2002 all the way to 2004. Now during this time, Arsenal were in a yearly battle against Manchester United, from winning domestic doubles in 1998 and 2002 to losing the Premier League in the 2002/03 season. Manchester United just seemed to be this force that Arsenal couldn't defeat. And this was despite all Henry's early heroics at the club, because even though Arsenal missed out on the title that year, Thierry Henry was virtually unstoppable, with the 2002/03 season being one of the greatest individual campaigns in Premier League history, where he would score 24 goals and get 20 assists, becoming the first ever player in the Premier League to complete this feat, something that since hasn't been replicated. He would win PFA Player of the Year, and all round everyone recognised him as the best in the league. Yet Manchester United would still win the league that season. He would do all this just to fall at the final hurdle. And then going into the 2003/04 season, he needed to reach new heights. And that's exactly what Thierry Henry and Arsenal did that season, with the squad going invincible and Henry scoring 30 league goals. Arsenal became the first team to go unbeaten in over a century in English football. with Henry netting 39 goals in 51 games in all competitions, winning not only the Premier League Golden Boot but the European Golden Boot too. He was the highest scorer in all of the top 5 leagues, with amazing moments just sprinkled throughout this campaign, like his goals against Liverpool, the solo run against Tottenham. He solidified himself as an all-time great and honestly just never really gets recognised as one of the craziest elite strikers in football, even though he was. In my opinion, he's better than the likes of Suarez, Lewandowski, Karim Benzema. This guy sits on the higher echelon of tiers. There has not been one striker in football history to do what Thierry Henry did. And maybe you can make about 6 or 7 comparisons to R9 in terms of their traits and abilities, but in my opinion, Thierry Henry is a way better player.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Yes, add the Vine Boom sound effects. I don't care, I'm saying it with chest.
Beloved YouTuber Jibs have gone mad after years of pain being an Arsenal fan. The delusion has reached its peak with recent claim of Thierry Henry being better than R9.
R9 might have the World Cups, the generational runs when he was 21 winning the Ballon d'Or, but Henry took over a league that was way more competitive than any other league during the 2000s. Now enough of the Thierry Henry glaze. You know, I'm not going to speak about this guy anymore, but there is one player in this list of players that we're talking about in this video that had an even better season than Thierry Henry. We have to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo's 2007/8 season. This was a version of Ronaldo that genuinely gave me childhood trauma. He was absolutely immense, and in the 2007/8 season he would just reach the peak of his powers, scoring 42 goals in 49 games, earning the Golden Boot in the Premier League ahead of some of your favourite players. Then in the Champions League he would score 8 goals, making him the joint top goal scorer of this competition too. He would be vital to every single thing that Manchester United did that season, helping them finish top of the table and winning the league 2 points above Chelsea. And with even more greatness to come, he would also win the Champions League that year too. Style wise, this is when we saw the metamorphosis of Ronaldo. This young flashy winger that was known for his diving in the league had transformed into an absolute beast, controlling and dictating games from start to finish, popping shots at every opportunity. He would just get the ball and say, you know what, I'ma just drive at your defense and score a solo run goal. As a winger, there had not been one this powerful in the Premier League, and it wasn't just the Premier League that was watching. The whole world knew that this guy was him. In a team with the likes of Wayne Rooney and Carlos Tevez, it was Ronaldo that stood out the most, pressuring oppositions and making them choke with the ball at their feet, with him winning all the accolades that season too, whether it was PFA Player of the Year, European Player of the Year, the Ballon d'Or. It was an absolute clean sweep, and you could tell by just his play style that season that this was real, this was monstrous, and this could never be replicated again. From leaping above Chelsea defenders in a Champions League final to scoring a scorcher of a free kick against Portsmouth, Ronaldo's 2007/8 season has to go down as one of the greatest individual campaigns that football has ever witnessed, ushering this new era of dominance and raw ability that him and Lionel Messi would inject into football. But next up in this video, we have to talk about a guy that was leading this era before the likes of Messi and Ronaldo. Let's talk about one of my favourite players, Ricardo Kaka, and the 2006/7 campaign. Now, quick disclaimer, throughout my entire life I have called Kaka Kaka because Kaka actually means poo.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no.
In like a lot of languages, even the one that my family speaks, like Kaka is known as poo. So I just say Kaka. So you're going to have to deal with it, the people that love pronunciations and every day they comment about my pronunciation. Shush. And like the video. Now during the mid-2000s, AC Milan was filled with experience and talent, and you could see with their influence in European competitions during this time, being heavily involved in the later stages of the competition year in and year out. But with the 2006/7 season over the horizon, there was new drama that was taking over the Serie A, as the Calciopoli scandal had taken over the league. Now pretty much this scandal involved teams fixing games, so a lot of the big Italian clubs during the 2000s would be faced with point deductions. This scandal had happened a bit prior to the 2006/7 season, so Milan and a lot of clubs like Juventus were experiencing tough times domestically, but in European competitions their pedigree was still known. Now, after losing in Istanbul to Liverpool back in 2005, AC Milan needed to do something, and with one of their main strikers, Shevchenko, heading out of the door in 2006, Kaka would become the focal point and creative outlet in this side. It was time for this squad to be built around Kaka's youth and complexity on the ball, with guys like Maldini, Pirlo and Seedorf filling the roles around him. And it was Kaka that would lead this journey to reclaim European glory. This team had just set out to sail on a new quest, something like the Straw Hats from One Piece. You know, Kaka was Luffy, and the One Piece was the Champions League. Because this 2006/7 campaign by Kaka is fondly remembered because of his actions in this competition. He would be the tournament's top goal scorer by the end of it with 10 goals in 13 games. A tally that included vital strikes at nearly every important round of the competition, with him overall scoring 18 goals and getting 10 assists in all competitions that season. But again, Kaka was just known to be a big game player, and in Europe that season you would see him shine, with one of his most memorable performances coming against Manchester United in the Champions League that year. This is a moment that I've actually spoke separately about in my video 10 out of 10 performances in football, but let's just quickly talk about it here anyway. In the second leg against Manchester United at Old Trafford, Kaka would score twice against this defensive unit, including a goal that is still replayed in football to this day, with Kaka chasing a ball that was going towards the Manchester United goal. Two Manchester United players would recognise the situation and say, "Kaka, you ain't going anywhere." With them attempting to get the ball, but also Kaka, he would header the ball between them, let them clatter into each other, step around them in slow motion and just slot the ball into the back of the net, making a mockery of this Manchester United defence and also just showing the world that he was really that guy. Another memorable moment from the Champions League that year from Kaka was also a finish that he scored against Celtic in the round of 16. Which again just demonstrated his dominance this season. He was absolutely undeniable, and that year he would go on to win the Champions League with AC Milan with another performance in a final that was amazing. You know, playing again against Liverpool, he would help Milan redeem themselves. And even though Milan would scrape a 4th place finish in the league thanks to an 8-point deduction, Kaka would win a Ballon d'Or, as that year he displayed time and time again that this raw pace that he had to just blast past opponents was, worldwide. Everyone knew that he was unstoppable during this time, and that's why he was the final Ballon d'Or winner before the era of Ronaldo and Messi. And it's crazy because Kaka actually defied all odds to get into a position to even play football to begin with. Because this is a guy that experienced a traumatic injury during his youth. Being told he would never play football again, he defied all odds to even be standing on a pitch. Yet it would never just turn out to be him standing on the pitch, he would be in full flow, becoming an absolute icon in football and a legend for AC Milan. But in terms of another individual that actually stood out in the Serie A itself and not the Champions League, we have to talk about one of the most hated strikers in online football discourse, Gonzalo Higuain, aka Burgerhin. Yeah, editor, you gotta cut that out. Managed by Maurizio Sarri, he was injected into this Napoli side, an Argentine striker that had arrived from Real Madrid back in 2013. And from 2013, Higuain was a consistent scorer, but Napoli fans were looking for something more. They needed 30 plus. They wanted someone to replicate the brilliance of Diego Armando Maradona. And Higuain at 28 said, "Hey, I am the chosen one. Hold my ice cream." Who knew that this guy would be the difference maker this campaign, going on an absolute historic run with 36 goals in 35 games, breaking a 66-year-old record for the most goals in the Italian league, a record that was held by Gunnar Nordahl back in the 1949/1950 season, where he scored 35 goals. And it was absolutely crazy. Higuain week after week would score poacher goals, clinical finishes, one-on-ones. He was there whenever they needed him, helping Napoli battle neck to neck with Juventus, a side that would actually just dominate this entire era of the Serie A. It was Higuain up top with the likes of Hamsik and Jorginho in the midfield. And although Napoli wouldn't reach the peak and win a Scudetto that season, he would help them finish second and also get back into the Champions League. And his 36 goals would nearly make him the highest in all of Europe's top 5 leagues, with the only other player ahead of him being Luis Suarez, who scored 40 that year. And I think one of my favourite things about him this year was that he rarely needed more than, 2-3 touches before he would shoot and score. And of course there's going to be a bunch of Napoli fans that remember his overhead kick against Frosinone. Happening on the final day of the season, Higuain needed to break this record and he broke it in fine fashion, scoring a hat-trick in this game and also the overhead kick that I previously mentioned. And for context, this season individually puts him up there with some of the all-time Serie A greats. Guys like Ronaldo R9, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Marco van Basten and even Francesco Totti had never even reached 30 goals in this league. Yet Higuain just came in with Napoli that season and said, nah, we're breaking all kinds of records. And it genuinely just never gets spoken about. And I think it's because Higuain has a reputation, as a bottler when it comes to international football. But at times during his career, he was elite. He was one of the best strikers throughout the 2010s at moments. And one of his moments came in a season for Napoli. And from one guy that gets called an absolute bottler by every single Messi fan to one that gets made fun of by every single Ronaldo fan. Let's talk about Frank Ribery in the 2012/2013 season. Now this year was a revenge season for Bayern Munich, because the previous year they had suffered a treble of devastating runner-up finishes, losing the DFB Pokal to Dortmund, the Bundesliga to Dortmund and also the Champions League to Chelsea. Yes, that year previously they reached all of these finals and lost at all of the last hurdles. But this year it was comeback season and one of their main guys was Frank Ribery. In his prime at 29, he was one of the key creative engines for this Bayern Munich side, alongside Ian Robin, who would form a duo called Robbery, with both of them taking up space on either side of the pitch. And that year in the 2012/2013 campaign, Bayern Munich would have an incredible season, winning a continental treble. Yes, all of the competitions that they narrowly missed out on last year, they went again this season and said, we're winning every single one. Clinching the Bundesliga title in April, winning the DFB Pokal and also winning the Champions League, with Ribery getting 22 goals and 18 assists in all competitions. And this was even more outstanding because Ribery wasn't just a guy that was known as the star player in this side. There were many other stars. So even with him not occupying the ball at all opportunities, he was still putting up amazing numbers. He was one of Bayern Munich's creative sparks, often cutting in and shooting or playing 1-2s and putting the ball into the box, with some of his best moments coming in a semi-final against Barcelona that Bayern Munich would ultimately win 7-0 on aggregate after both legs. And then of course in the final at Wembley against Dortmund, after losing to them in the Bundesliga last season, it would be Ribery that put through the assist for the final goal in the game. Yes, the goal that Robin scored was actually assisted by Ribery, and that would be a common pattern throughout the entirety of this competition. You didn't see Ribery putting up crazy goals in, the games against Barcelona, but in terms of assists, Ribery was there. And it wasn't just football fans that recognized that Ribery was, the pinnacle and pioneer of this side, it was football too. He would win the UEFA Best Player of the Year award in 2013 and be recognized as the best guy in this competition, pulling 36 of the votes ahead of the likes of Messi and Ronaldo. And although he ultimately wouldn't win the Ballon d'Or that year, a lot of people say that he did deserve it, including Ribery himself. He was honestly one of my favourite wingers growing up, and he's been around for a while, being involved in the French national team all the way from 2006. With technical grace on the ball, the ability to take on his man and get in behind, Ribery had all the classic attributes that we would give to peak wingers in football. And that year he went on an incredible generational run in football. Now sadly that will be the last player that I'm going to be talking about in this video. But if you have any other suggestions for later parts to this series that we could, include, then comment down below another player, and also what was your favorite run that we talked about in this video. So of course, like the video, comment what you thought, and subscribe to the channel if this is the first time you're seeing my face on your screen. This has been Jib Rules as always, back with another video, and of course, stay safe, stay blessed, and peace.